Today we are going to start law of agency. Law of agency or agency law. So please go to the relevant lesson in the TUT, law of agency or agency law. And let's start filling the blanks. I will read to you. Agency is a relationship which exists between the principal and the agent, whereby the agent agrees to effect a transaction with a third party on behalf of the principal. Principal. P-R-I-N-C-I-P-A-L. Principal. Next one, agent. An agent is a person who is authorized by his principal to make contracts on behalf of the principal with third parties. With third parties. Then let's see applicable law. The law governing agency in Sri Lanka is the English law. English law. Then let's see capacity of an agent. An agent need not necessarily have the contractual capacity to enter into the contract with the third party. Therefore, an agent can even be a minor or a bankrupt person. Bankrupt person. Right? Bankrupt person. So, what we were studying is law of agency. In law of agency, there are three characters. A principal, agent, third party. Here, the main contract is between the principal and the third party. The main contract is between the principal and the third party. The agent will help the principal to enter into a contract with the third party. Or in other words, the agent is the intermediary, the middleman, the go-between the principal and the third party. So most of the time, the third party will interact with the agent. And the agent is interacting with the third party on behalf of the principal. And between the principal and the agent, there is a relationship, which is known as agency relationship. Agency relationship or contract. Right? The main contract between principal and third party we studied, that is under contract law, right? The main contract between the principal and the third party, the laws that are applicable is in the first lesson, contract law. Now we are going to study the laws that is applicable to this relationship, right? The agency contract where how the principal should behave with the agent and how the agent should behave with the principal, and what liabilities the agent has towards the third party, right? If you see, this is like the third party is like you, student. You are doing chartered exam. So CA Sri Lanka is the principal, right? But you are doing this chartered exam through who? Through IAS, right? So you will see, when it comes to exam, the main contract is between the student and chartered institute, right? But IAS is acting as the agent of chartered institute, and you come to IAS to register for the exam, right? To get exam coaching, etc. You mostly see IAS, you rarely see the principal, right? So if something goes wrong, you should sue who when it comes to the exam? The IAS or the chartered institute. Now that is what we are going to discuss. What are the duties chartered institute has towards IAS? What are the duties IAS has towards chartered institute, right? When it comes to agency relationship. So we studied what is an agency, right? And who is an agent. Now, the applicable law, the law that is applicable to this agency is, right? The law that is applicable is what? English law, right? English law. You know, right? Sri Lanka is governed by two laws. In Sri Lanka, we follow two laws. You will study this when you learn about English legal system. In Sri Lanka, we follow two laws. One is Roman law, other one is English law. Roman Dutch law was given to us by the Dutch. English law was given to us by the British, right? When we are studying the legal system, we will discuss in what instances the Roman Dutch law is applicable, in what instances the English law is applicable. One of the instances the English law is applicable is, right, the agency relationship. Understood? Then, let's see the capacity of an agent. Right? What do you mean by capacity? Ability. We studied under contract law. Capacity means ability. Now, when it comes to entering into a contract, here the main contract is between the principal and the third party. But the agent is only negotiating with the third party. When the agent is negotiating with the third party, should the agent have the same capacity as the principal? So the question is, right, should the agent have the same capacity? What do you mean by capacity? Ability as the principal. Tell me yes or no. The answer is no. The answer is no. Right? the agent need not have the same capacity as the principal. For example, let's say this is a man proposing to a girl, right? Let's take here is a man proposing to a woman, right? So the man is over 18 years. He is over 18 years. The woman is over 18 years. Right? That is why we call them man and woman, no? Now tell me, when the man is proposing to the woman through this agent, right? The man is sending the love letter, the proposal letter through the agent. This agent is a small boy. Small boy. He is less than 18 years. Let's say he is 15 years. He is just 15 years. Right? Let's take in a school teacher, a sir in a school is sending a love letter to a teacher in a school through a student of that school. Should this boy also have the same capacity as this man to deliver the love letter? No need. No need, right? The agent need not have the same capacity as the principal, right? So that is what it says, capacity of an agent. An agent need not necessarily have the contractual capacity to enter into a contract with the third party. Therefore, an agent can even be a minor or a bankrupt person. Then let's see liabilities of the principal, agent, and third party. Let's write. Okay, number one, when the agent has created a contractual relationship between his principal and a third party, his function is generally over. Over. Right? Then next one. When an agent on behalf of the principal enters into a contract with third parties, it is the principal who becomes the party to the contract and not the agent. Agent. Then next one, third one, thus it is the principal who is bound to the third party and not the agent. Therefore, only the principal and the third party can sue each other. Each other. Fourth one, whether or not the agent can sue or be sued by the third party depends on the nature of the agreement. If the nature of the agreement is not clear, following rules will apply. Apply. Right? Now, generally speaking, as I told you, when there's a contract between the principal and the third party, most of the time the third party will see who? The agent. The agent. Right? This man's love letter is taken by this boy to the woman. Most of the time the woman will not see the man, the woman will see this boy. Right? Like I told you, IAS, U and CA Sri Lanka. IAS, U and CA Sri Lanka. IAS student, CA Sri Lanka, right? If you see here, most of the time the student will see IAS, then CA Sri Lanka. If something goes wrong, the student should file a case against who? Right, in this relationship, where the student is doing an exam of Chartered Institute by attending classes at IAS and registering for the exam at IAS, right? If something goes wrong, the student should file a case against student versus CA Sri Lanka or student versus IAS. In other words, can you file a case against, can this third party, right? Let's take as 3P. Can the third party file a case against the agent? Should the third party file a case against the principal? Right? The answer is the third party should file a case against the principal. This is the correct thing. This is not the correct thing. Generally, the general rule is this. Generally, you file a case against the principal, even though you mostly see the agent, right? It is ultimately the principal is only liable, right? So that's what it says there, right? Then, but there are exceptional situations. But there are exceptional situations. Let's see what are those exceptional situations are, right? Right? Let's see. Right? This boy is going to deliver a love letter to this girl on behalf of the principal. Right? This boy is going to deliver a love letter to this woman on behalf of this man. Let's say this woman's husband catches this boy. This woman's husband catches this boy with the love letter. If this woman's husband catches this boy with the love letter, can the husband hammer this boy? Right? So here we have the man, the woman, and the boy. Can the boy be hammered by this woman's husband? It depends on this. If the principle, if the man is disclosed, right? We have to consider whether this boy is telling the husband, right, who gave the letter. If the boy doesn't tell anything, right, if he doesn't open his mouth, then what happens? The boy will get hammered. In other words, the agent is liable. Agent is liable. Right? If the agent don't reveal the identity of the principal, right? The existence of the principal, the third party can sue the agent. So the agent is liable for the third party, even though it is not his contract, even though it is not his love letter. But let's say the boy only declares the existence but not the identity. The boy tells this woman's husband, some man gave me this letter to be given to this lady. Whereas the husband also knows the letter was not written by this boy. The boy is not the person who is giving this letter to the woman. So even the husband knows it was given by somebody else. Then what happens? Right? The agent is not liable. Agent is not liable. Right? Generally, the agent is not liable. Then the boy tells the existence and also the identity of the man who gave this love letter to the woman. Then what happens? The agent is not liable. Principal is liable. Principal is liable. Right? Principal is liable. So that is how it works. Right? So keeping that in mind, let's start reading this. If the agent names the principal, at the time of making the contract, if the agent names the principal, the agent generally incurs neither rights nor liabilities and drops out as soon as the contract is made. Therefore, only the principal can sue and be sued by the third party. By the third party. Third party. The next one. However, there are certain exceptions to this rule. Let's write them. A, if the agent executes a deed in his own name, he is liable on the deed. Deed, D-E-E-D. He is liable on the deed. He is liable on the deed. The next one. He is liable on the deed. The next one. If he signs a negotiable instrument in his own name without adding words indicating that he is signing as an agent. As an agent. The next one. The nature of the contract and the circumstances of the case indicate that the agent is liable. Liable. And next one. If the custom of that particular trade makes him liable, and E, where the agent is in fact the principal but pretends to be an agent. Then F, where the agent has no authority to represent the principal. The next one, G, if the agent contracts on behalf of a non-existing principal. Non-existing principal. Right? Non-existing principal. So in what circumstances, right, will the agent, if the agent names the principal, what will happen? It says, at the time of making the contract, if the agent names the principal, the agent generally incurs neither rights nor liabilities and drops out as soon as the contract is made. So, when the main contract is being made, when the agent is negotiating with the third party, if the agent discloses the principal, that is the existence and the identity of the principal, the agent is not liable. The agent is not liable, but the principal is liable. This is the rule, right? But there are exceptions. To this rule, right? So this is the general rule. Let's see the exceptions. Right, the exceptions are these. A, if the agent executes a deed in his own name, agent signs deed, right? The agent is signing the deed. What is a deed? Deed in Sinhala is called oppuak. In Tamil is called oppandam, right? So if the agent is signing the documents, agent becomes responsible. Then it falls within the exception. Then B, if he signs a negotiable instrument in his own name without adding words indicating that he is signing as an agent. agent signs negotiable instruments. Negotiable instruments. Right? What is negotiable instruments? Example checks. Example checks. Promissory notes. Promissory notes, etc. We will learn negotiable instruments later. Then you will understand what is these negotiable instruments. Basically, negotiable instruments is a check. So if the agent is signing negotiable instruments, right, without indicating that he is an agent, then agent is again responsible. Then see the nature of the contract and the circumstances of the case indicate the agent is liable. The nature of the contract. The nature of the contract. Circumstances of the case. Right? If the nature of the contract shows, the circumstances of the case shows that you are responsible, the agent is responsible, then the agent will become responsible. For example, let's say, let's take, for example, you sorry, let's take the third party is canteen uncle. Canteen uncle, principal is me, and agent is you, right? Third party is canteen uncle, agent is you, I am the principal. You come and tell me that you are hungry. You come and tell me that you are hungry, whether I can give you some food. I tell, all right, I don't have food with me, but go to the canteen and tell the canteen uncle to give you a rice packet. And tell canteen uncle Zafri will pay for it. Tell canteen uncle Zafri will pay for it. I will pay for it. So you go to canteen uncle and you request for a lunch packet and you tell canteen uncle that I will pay for it. And let's say canteen uncle knows that I buy lunch for students. So he gives you a lunch packet. Later what do? You eat the lunch packet then and there. Right in front of the canteen uncle, you eat the lunch packet. Right? And you go off. So the canteen uncle saw you eating the lunch packet. Later what happens? In the evening, I die. In the evening, I die. I am no more. But canteen uncle's bill is not paid. Can the canteen uncle demand it from you? Right? Since I am not living anymore, right, the circumstances of the case shows that canteen uncle can't ask from me because I am dead. And also the nature of the contract. Who ate the lunch packet? Right in front of canteen uncle, you. So the canteen uncle saw you eating it. Therefore, the canteen uncle can demand it from you. Although you were an agent, canteen uncle knew that you were an agent, still he can demand it from you because the nature of the contract as well as the circumstances of the case says so. The next one, if the custom of the particular trade makes him liable, right? The custom of the trade, or rather trade customs. Trade customs. Right? In the industry, if you, right? In the industry, if you take the trade custom means in the industry, if generally the agent is responsible for the third party, even though the third party knows this is only an agent, right? The agent is liable. Like for example, shipping trade, travel trade. In shipping trade and in travel trade, right? The agent only always speaks to the third party. The third party only sees the agent. The third party will never see the principal. So the agent is responsible. Then local agents and foreign principals. When it comes to local agents and foreign principals, again the local agent is responsible, right? Even though the third party knows that he is only an agent. Then let's see next one. Where the principal pretends to be agent. Right? Where the principal pretends to be agent. If you see, right, the boy, let's say for example, the boy wants to give this love letter, give a love letter to this woman. In fact, the boy writes the love letter and he wants to give the love letter to this woman. But what does he do? He comes to this woman and he gives the love letter saying that somebody else gave it. Right? He says, excuse me, here's a love letter for you. And he gives as if somebody else gives it. The woman also believes that somebody else gave, but in fact it is the boy. But later if it is discovered it is the boy who has done it, right? The boy will become responsible. The next one. Agent has no authority. Right? Agent has no authority. What do you mean by that? The principal has never told the agent to go and give the love letter. But agent on his own volition, on his own thinking has gone and given the love letter to the third party. Then what happens? The agent is responsible, not the principal. The next one. Principal is not existing. Principal is not living. Principal is not living. Right? What do you mean by that? You can't act as an agent for a non-living person. Right? So if you act as an agent for a non-living person, the agent himself is responsible, right? And not the principal. Right? Let's see this case. Kellner versus Baxter. A promoter who was incorporating a company entered into contracts on behalf of the company to be incorporated. Court held that the promoter incurred liability on those contracts personally, since the proposed company, that is the principal, was not in existence at the time the agent entered into the contract. Right? So what happened in this case is, right? Contract was entered into by an agent on behalf of a company even before the company was registered. Right? There the courts told the agent is personally liable, but not the company, right? Because at the time the contract was made, the company was not even born. Right? We'll discuss about it later, fully when we discuss agency. Then if he agrees to be liable, the other one is agent agrees to be liable. What do you mean by that? Agent agrees to be liable. That means, right, the agent takes on the responsibility of the principal. Right? Agent takes on the responsibility of the principal. So let's see the next one, B. B says if the agent discloses the existence of the principal but not the name of the principal. As the agent expressly contracts as an agent, the agent is not personally liable on the contract. Right? So it says here, right? Sorry, here. The existence of the principal is disclosed, but not the identity. Right? Since the third party knows that this is only an agent, the third party can't make the agent responsible because the third party knows somebody else is the principal. Then let's see C. If the agent does not disclose the existence of the principal, doctrine of the undisclosed principal. At the time of making the contract on behalf of the principal, if the agent does not disclose the existence and the identity of the principal to the third party, the principal would be an undisclosed principal. Here the agent makes the contract in his own name as if he is the principal and does not tell to the third party that he is an agent. The effect of such contract is that the agent may sue and be sued on the contract as long as the principal remains concealed. B, however, the right to sue is lost if the principal intervenes. If the principal intervenes, he becomes personally liable to the third party on the contract. C, the third party, after having discovered the principal, has an option. He may elect to sue either the agent or the principal. Right? What does this say? What does it say? If the principal is not disclosed, If the principal is not disclosed by the agent becomes personally liable. Agent is personally liable, right? Personally liable. But what happens when the third party is hammering the agent? When the third party is hammering the agent, the principal can intervene. Principal can intervene and tell this third party, don't hit the agent. I am liable, so hit me. Then the third party has two options. The third party has two options. The third party can let go the agent and go after the principal, or the third party can ignore the principal and continue hammering the agent, right? So generally agent is personally liable. Then what happens? If principal intervenes, right? Third party can sue the principal and let go the agent, or ignore the agent, ignore the principal and continue suing the agent. Malikat. Two questions. Question 2018 September 1.6. 2018 September 1.6. 2018 September 1.6. The question is, which of the following is an instance? Sorry, I didn't tell you. 2018 September 1.6. 2018 September 1.6. It says, which of the following is correct in relation to an instance where the agent is not personally liable on the contracts made for his principal? So they're asking in what instances the agent is not personally liable. Let's see option A. A says when the agent is contracting on behalf of a non-existing principal, yes or no? Yes. Right? If the agent is contracting on behalf of a non-existing principal, the agent is personally liable, so it can't be the answer. Then B, when the agent expressly contract as an agent for an unnamed principal. Right? If the agent expressly contracts on behalf of a principal who is not named, then the agent is not liable. That seems to be the answer. But let's continue and let's see when the agent does not indicate to the third party that he is contracting as an agent. Yes. In C, if he doesn't disclose that he is an agent, then agent is personally liable. D, when the agent who is in fact the principal contract as an agent. So if the agent is the principal, then agent is liable. Right, so the correct answer for 2018 September 1.6 is B. Right? 2018 September 1.6 is B. Then let's see 2016 September 4.1. 2016 September 4.1. Let's see first one. This is also similar to the earlier question. An agent can be held personally liable on a certain contracts entered into by the agent on behalf of his principal. Which of the following is such an instance? Right, so here they are asking in what instance the agent is personally held liable. Right? A, the agent indicates that he is contracting as an agent for an unnamed principal. There, of course, the agent is not personally liable. So A is not the answer. B, the agent contracts on behalf of a non-existing principal. Yes. There, of course, the agent is personally liable if the principal is not existing. Then C, the agent discloses that he is contracting on behalf of a named principal. Right? If the agent discloses the existence and the identity, the agent is not responsible. Then, so C is also not the answer. D, the agent indicates on a bill of exchange that he is the agent of a named principal. Right? In the bill of exchange, in a check, if the agent indicates clearly that he is only an agent, then again the agent is not liable. Right? So the correct answer for 4.1, that is 2016 September 4.1 is B. Right? Then let's go to the TUT, creation of agency. Right? Creation of agency. So let's write. Agent and principal relationship can be created. Number one, by an express agreement. Express agreement. Agreement. Number two, by implication. Number three, by ratification. And number four, necessity. And number five, estoppel. Estoppel. Right? So, what are the ways in which an agency be created? By express agreement, by implication, by ratification, by necessity, by estoppel. right? So let's see first one, agency by an express agreement. Express agreement means an oral or written agreement where a principal appoints an agent. Express agreement basically means, right, the agent is appointed by the principal by a written agreement, by a written document, right? So that is express agreement. Then let's see agency by implication. Estoppel or agency by holding out. The next method of creating agency is by estoppel, right? Estoppel or holding out. What do you mean by estoppel? Here, right, principal introduces a person to the third party to act on the principal's behalf, but such person is not formally appointed as agent. Right? In what happens in estoppel or holding out, the principal will introduce a person to the third party to deal with the third party on behalf of the principal, but such person is not formally appointed as agent. For example, you come to give me money. Let's say you are paying my fees. You are paying my fees by check, right? By check. So when you come to my office to pay my fees by check, I don't take the check to my hand. I tell you to go and meet my accountant and to hand over the check to my accountant, right? When you come to hand over the check to me, I tell you to go and meet my accountant and to hand over the check to the accountant. That happens in the first month, January. February also you come to hand over the check to me. I tell you to hand over it to the accountant. Third month, March also you come to hand over the check for me. I tell you to hand it over to the accountant. The fourth month, April, you bring cash. You bring cash. Or let's say the fourth month, yeah, let's say fourth month, you bring, now from fourth month you won't come to me, you will directly go to the accountant, because you know I tell you to go and meet the accountant to hand over the check. So 4th, April, May, June, you directly go and hand over the check to accountant. Then in July, instead of check, you bring cash. And what do? You go to the accountant and hand over the cash in July. Accountant takes the cash and runs away. Right? Accountant takes the cash that you are supposed to giving me and runs away. So I don't get the cash. I call you and ask, where is my money? Where is the payment? You tell that you have given it to the accountant. I argue with you, why did you give money to the accountant? I never told you to give it to the accountant, right? But you will say, but you have told me to give checks. I will say yes, but I never told you to give money. But then you will argue with me, if you have told me to give checks, I can give money also, right? Then the question arises, the accountant, is the accountant my agent? He is definitely an agent for check, express agreement. But for money, is he my agent? The answer will be yes, because if I have held him out as my agent to collect checks, the law says third parties will think he can also collect money because I have held him out as my agent, right? So that's what it says here. Let's read. Agency by estoppel. Agency arises where the principal by his words or conduct holds out another as having the authority to make contracts on his behalf. After such purported agent makes a contract with a third person, the principal is prevented from denying that such purported agent has authority on his behalf and is bound by such contracts as if he had expressly authorized them. Right? Then, to create agency by estoppel, 3 elements should be present. Number 1, there should be a representation by a person, and number 2, the third party should rely on the representation, and 3, the third party should alter his position relying on the representation, right? So, what does it says? To create agency by estoppel, 3 elements should be present. There should be a representation by a person, and the third party should rely on the representation, and third one, the third party should alter his position relying on the representation. So, what are the elements? Elements in estoppel, essential elements, right? There must be a representation. I should have introduced you to my accountant. I should have introduced my accountant to you, right? That is representation. Then the third party should rely on the representation. Third party rely on representation. You believe my accountant has power to collect payment on my behalf, right? You believe my accountant has power to collect payment on my behalf. And C, the third party should alter his position relying on the representation. Third party alter position relying on representation. Right? Third party alters position relying on representation. So these are the essential elements of a contract, of a agency by estoppel. So let's see question number 36 in the pilot paper. 2020 pilot paper, question number 36. Amal said to Bimal in front of Costa that he was authorized agent of Costa and could enter into any contract on behalf of Costa. Right? So Amal told Bimal, Bimal is the third party, Amal is the purported agent. Amal told Bimal that he can enter into any contract on behalf of Costa. Costa did not refuse the statement made by Amal. Costa didn't deny it. Costa didn't tell, no, he can't do it. He just kept quiet. Here, agency created between Amal and Costa. How? By agreement, by estoppel, by implication or by ratification? The answer is by estoppel, right? In express agreement, I introduce my agent and tell this is my agent. In estoppel, the agent tells you that he is an agent of Zafri and I keep quiet, right? So that is what happens. So the answer is B, question number 36. So let's go to the next one, duties of the agent. Right? What are the duties of the agent? Duties of the agent. Number one, the agent must follow principal's instructions and do what he has undertaken to do. Undertaken to do. Right? So, first duty is follow instructions. Whatever the agent, whatever the principal says, the agent must do. So the agent must follow principal's instructions. principal's instructions. Right? Then number 2, the agent must exercise reasonable care, due diligence and special skills, if any, in the performance of his duties. Duties. Right? What do you mean by that? The agent must exercise reasonable care. In other words, the agent must be careful, skillful, and diligent. Diligent. Diligent means, in Sinhala we say unanduwen. Right? Careful means you know, not careless. Skillful means showing lot of skills. Right? So, if the agent has any skills, he must show it. Let's see this case, Chowdhury versus Prabhakar. P asked A, right? That is P's friend, to find a suitable car, and specifically told not to recommend cars that have been involved in accidents. A found a car and overly recommended it and urged P to buy it. Later, P bought the car and found it was unroadworthy. Court held that A has failed to exercise reasonable care. Right? So what happened in this case is, the principal asked the agent to recommend him a good car. Right? And the agent told he knows about cars. The agent boasted to the principal saying that I know about cars, so I'll find you a good car. So, agent recommended a car and the principal bought the car. But after buying the car, the principal found out the car is not roadworthy. So what did the principal do? The principal sued the agent for recommending a unroadworthy car. In other words, a bad car. There the courts told, yes, the agent has breached his duty. He was not careful, he was not skillful, he was not diligent. Right? Then let's see next one. The agent must disclose all information that is likely to affect the decision of the principal. So the third rule is disclose all information. Right? The principal is under a duty, the agent is under a duty to disclose all information to the principal. No hangi muttang, right? No hangi muttang. Everything should be told to the principal. Let's see this case, Heath versus Parkinson. P, a tenant. Tenant means a person who takes a house on rent. P, a tenant, employed A to find a subtenant to lease a premises. P instructed A not to introduce tailors as subtenant since the landlord did not consent to operating a tailoring business in the premises. There was a great demand for the said premises from tailors. A directly approached the landlord and obtained landlord's consent to lease the premises to tailors, which fact he did not disclose to P. Subsequently, X was introduced as a subtenant and P agreed to lease the premises at a lower sum to X. Later, P learned that X was a tailor and A has obtained landlord's consent to lease the premises to tailors. P refused to pay A's commission. Court held that A was not entitled for the commission since A had not properly carried out his duty. Right, so what happened in this case is, let's say I rented a house from IAS. I rented a house from IAS. When IAS rented that house to me, they told not to have a tailoring business in that house. House or building, I rented a building from IAS. When I rented the building from IAS, IAS told me don't have a tailoring business in this building. I agreed. Later, I wanted to sublease it. Right? I wanted to sublease this building to somebody else. So I called you. You are a broker. So I called you and told, can you find me a subtenant who will lease this building from me, but no tailors, right? No tailors. You ask why no tailors? Then I told, because my landlord don't like tailors in his building. So you also told okay and you went. But what did you do? You directly approached IAS and you got permission from IAS to lease the building to anybody. But you didn't tell me that you have got such a permission. So what happened? You bought a tailor and I leased the building. Subsequently, I got to know, right? The subtenant is a tailor. Then when I called you and asked, why did you bring a tailor? You told, don't worry, I already spoke to IAS. The matter is sorted out. Then I get angry and I tell, why didn't you tell me when you spoke to IAS and when you got the approval from IAS, right? So the agent must disclose. If you are my broker, you are my agent. If you directly spoke to the landlord, you should tell me, right, whatever you spoke to the landlord, right? You not telling is a breach of your duty, right? That's what it says, disclose all information. Then fourth one, the agent must submit true accounts and full information. Submit true accounts. Tell the truth. Then next one. So the fourth one is the agent must submit true accounts and full information. Then fifth one, agent must not have a conflict of interest and or compete with the principal. What does it say? No conflict of interest. No competition. Understood? With the agent can't compete with the principal. The agent can't have conflict of interest with the principal. Right? For example, if I am trying for a girl. If I am trying for a girl and I write a love letter and hand it over to you to deliver it to that girl, right? I am trying for a girl. I want to be friendly with that girl. So what do? I write a love letter and I hand it over to you to deliver it to that girl. In that transaction, I am the principal, the girl is the third party, you are the agent. When you are acting as the agent, you must try to do what is good for me. You must try to make a relationship possible between me and that girl. But what happens if you fall in love with that girl? Right? You are my agent. And what happens if you also fall in love with that girl? There will be a conflict of interest. Right? Then, rather than getting me the girl, you will try to get the girl for yourself. Understood? So, that is not a good thing. You have breached your duty. So if you promise to take my love letter, you should not fall in love with the girl I am trying. And you can't compete with me. Right? You can't compete for her love with me. That's what it says. The next one, sixth one, the agent must not delegate the performance of his duties to another. Right? Sixth one is no delegation. Right? Right? The Latin phrase for it, delegatus, non potest delegare. Right? What does it say? Delegatus non potest delegare. No delegation. What do you mean by no delegation? When I tell you to do some work for me, you can't tell somebody else to do it. When I ask you to deliver the love letter to that girl, you can't tell your friend to do that job. That is what it says, no delegation. You yourself must do the job. In Latin, they tell it delegatus non potest delegare. Right? Let's see a question in the pilot paper. Pilot paper question number 38. Pilot paper question number 38. Question number 38, let's read. According to the concept of delegatus non potest delegare, an agent A cannot earn secret profits, wrong. Cannot let his duties conflict with his interest, wrong. Cannot give his powers to another person, correct. Cannot receive a commission or remuneration, wrong. Delegatus non potest delegare, what does it say? Don't delegate. Right? You can't give your powers to another person, right? Then let's get back to the tute. Seventh one, the agent must not divulge confidential information of the principal, right? Don't disclose confidential information. Principal's confidential information. Right? What does it say? As an agent, you have a duty not to disclose principal's confidential information. So, let's say, for example, I told you, you are my agent to deliver a letter to that girl. I am your principal. So, if I am using as my agent to deliver the letter to the girl, I tell you, right, don't tell that I am married to that girl. I specifically instruct you, don't tell that I am married without telling that go and deliver this letter to the girl. But what do? You go and disclose to that girl that I am married. Then have you breached your duty? Yes. As an agent, you have breached your duty. You are not supposed to disclose principal's confidential information. If I have told you not to disclose, you can't disclose. Then the agent must act in the best interest and for the benefit of the principal. Right? So, as an agent, when you are acting, act in the best interest, act in the principal's best interest and benefit. Right? The law says, if you are acting as an agent, you must act as an agent in the principal's best interest and benefit. Let's see Macpherson versus Watt. The principals were about to advertise their property for sale when the solicitor means the lawyer, said that he will find them a buyer. He then got his brother to buy this property and thereafter got the brother to sell it to him. Subsequently, the principals got to know that the true purchaser was the solicitor. Courts held that the solicitor, as the agent, had put his interest above the interest of the principals and therefore had acted improperly. Therefore, the sale was annulled. So what happened in this case is, you are my lawyer, I tell you to sell my property, right? You agree to sell my property on my behalf. What do? You get your brother to buy my property and later you buy it off from your brother. I get to know Who has bought my property? You. What you did, is it correct? What you did is wrong. Why? You can't be the buyer and the seller. Right? You can't be the buyer and the seller in a transaction. When you are acting as my agent, I am the seller, you must think about the seller and try to get the best price. Right? And if you are buying, or if your brother is buying, what will happen? You will think about buying it at a low rate. So in your mind, you are thinking about selling at a high rate and also buying it at a low rate, which is not compatible. So that's why the law says what you have done is wrong. Either you must be the seller or you must be the buyer. Right? If you are interested in buying the property, you must then tell, you can't act as my agent. Right? Otherwise, you must act as my agent and not buy the property. Then let's see. Ninth one. The agent must not make a secret profit. Right? Ninth duty is no secret profit. What is secret profit? You get a profit without telling the principal. If you have got a profit without the principal knowing about it, that's a secret profit which is not allowed. You can make profit if the principal knows about it. If the principal knows about it, you can make the profit. But if the principal don't know about it, you can't make the profit. That is illegal. Right? Like, what happened here? Let's see. Dibush versus Alt. An agent was entrusted with the task of finding a buyer to sell a ship. Since she could not find a buyer, he bought the ship himself and later sold it to a third party at a high price. Court held that the agent had made a secret profit without the knowledge of the principal, and therefore he had to account to the principal for this profit. Right? So in Dibush versus Alt, what happened is, the agent made a secret profit. So there the courts told he has to, right, hand over the secret profit that he made to the principal. Then let's see Hipsley versus Nee. Court held that when the principal knows about the profit and consents to the agent making it, then it is no longer a secret profit. Therefore, the agent is entitled to keep it. In the Hipsley case, they told, but if the principal knows it, if the principal knows that the agent is making a profit, then it is no longer secret. What you can't take is secret profits, but you can take profits. That is no problem. So the agent can keep it. The next one, if the agent receives any secret profits from the other party without the knowledge of the principal is entitled to the principal may dismiss the agent without notice. Without notice. Notice. Next one, repudiate the agency contract. Contract. Next one, refuse to pay the amount, pay the agent his commission. then recover the secret profits from the agent. So what happens? If agent makes secret profit, what happens if the agent makes secret profit? Principal can A dismiss the agent without notice. In other words, sack the agent without notice. Then not pay agent's commission. C, recover secret profit. And D, cancel the contract with the third party. Right? Sorry. Cancel the contract with the agent. Right? So all these can be done by the principal. The principal can dismiss the agent, sack the agent, not pay the commission, can take away the secret profit also the agent has made, and also can cancel the agency contract. Right, so keeping that in mind, let's see questions. Pilot paper 2020, question number 35. Pilot paper 2020, question number 35. Right, the question is, Nimal appointed Ranjit as his agent to sell a car. Right, Nimal appointed Ranjit as his agent to sell a car. Ranjit himself purchased the car without informing Nimal. Here the agent Ranjit has breached. What has Ranjit breached? The duty of reasonable care and skill? No. Right? That is not a breach of duty of care and skill. The duty not to put his interest in conflict with his duties? Yes. Right? Not to put his interest in conflict with his duties? Yes. That is correct. The duty of performance? No. The duty not to earn secret profits? Maybe, but the most correct answer is B. The duty not to put his interest in conflict with his duties. Then let's go to the next question. 2015 March 1.4. 2015 March 1.4. The question is, law of agency recognizes certain rights and duties applicable to both the principal and the agent. which of the following is not a duty of an agent towards the principal? Right? So what is not a duty? A, to delegate his, that is the agent's authority, to another person. Yes, that is not a duty. That is not a duty. But let's see the other one. B, to render relevant accounts to the principal when required to do so. That is a duty. That is a duty, right? But whereas A is not a duty. C, let's see. To exercise due diligence in the performance of his duties and apply any special skill which he professes to have. Yes, that is also a duty. That is also a duty. D, to disclose to the principal all material facts relating to the transaction which are known to the agent. Yeah, that is also a duty. Correct, that is also a duty. So the not a duty is A. So the answer for 2015 March 1.4 is A. Right? Right, then there are a lot of theory questions, but we are not doing theory questions, right? Then let's go to next one, rights of the agent. Right, rights of the agent. Let's see. We have discussed duties. Let's see the rights. Rights of the agent. Number one, to receive commission or remuneration. Remuneration. Right? Remuneration means payment, right? Remuneration is equal to payment. Next one, number two, to be indemnified for the expenses and losses incurred in the performance of the agent's duty. Duty. Right? So what is the first right the agent has? Rights are aitivasikam. Duties are yutukam. First right is get commission. As an agent, the principal should pay your commission. You have a right to get your commission. Then number two, right? To be indemnified. To be indemnified. What do you mean by indemnified? Get paid for the losses, expenses. Right? Indemnified means you get paid for the losses, you get paid for the expenses, right? While doing the principal's job, if the agent suffers a loss or an expense, the principal have to pay. Let's see this case, Christopher Rides versus Terry. C employed X, a broker, to make speculative purchases of cotton for C. Due to fall of prices in the cotton market, C became heavily indebted to X. X closed C's account and sold the cotton which X bought on behalf of C. X was personally liable on the contract with third parties, and the sale of cotton resulted in a loss. Court held that X was entitled. X was entitled. X was entitled. X was entitled to be indemnified by C. Right? So what happened in Christopher Wrights versus Terry is, right, the agent did certain contracts on behalf of the principal. And later the agent became responsible to pay the third parties. There the courts told the principal must make good the loss suffered by the agent. Right? Exception, however, in the following circumstances, the principal is not liable to indemnify the agent. That is, A, if the agent has acted beyond his authority. Beyond his authority. If the agent has performed his duty negligently. Right? What are the exceptions? Generally, the agent has to be indemnified by the principal, except if agent has acted beyond authority. B, acted negligently. Right, in these two circumstances, the principal is not responsible to indemnify the agent. Right? Then third one, let's see, to exercise the right of lien over the principal's goods, which are in the possession of the agent in the event the agent's commission is not paid. Right? Now, what is the next right? The right of lien. The right of lien. What is lien? Lien means right to detain somebody else's goods. Right of lien means you have a right to detain. Detain means hold on to somebody else's goods. Right? So, the agent can hold on to the principal's goods if the agent's commission is not paid. Right? If the agent's commission is not paid, the agent need not hand over the principal's goods to the principal he can detain them until his commission is paid. Right, so that's what it says here. Right, let's see 2017, March 1.6. 2017, March 1.6. Which of the following is not a duty of a principal towards his agent? Right? What is not a duty? A, to pay the agent his commission or remuneration, that is a duty, the first duty. B, to indemnify the agent for the lawful acts done by him in the capacity of an agent, yes, that is also a duty, the second duty. C, to indemnify the agent for liabilities incurred by him in the execution of his authority, yes, that is also correct, the second duty. D, to recover the secret profits made by the agent, no, that is not a duty, that is not a duty, right? So that is the answer, it's not a duty. Right, then let's go to the next one, authorities of the agent. Right, authorities of the agent.